Earlier today, GQ released a video titled "The 50 Craziest Things Trump Has Done as President" on YouTube, and now it's on the trending list. It's probably around number 7 or 8, depending on when you're watching this video at. And I'm going to give my reaction to it because I guarantee most of the things they say are falsehoods and don't actually have any levity to them whatsoever. So I'm going to be doing this reaction video live. This is the first time I've seen the video. And if it gets too long, I'm going to split it into 2 parts because it's a 9.5-minute video because there's 50 reasons, and I may not be able to fit all my reactions into one part. So let's get started with the video here, and I'm going to be pausing it to talk about it as it happens. So here we go.
I'm Keith Olbermann, and this is The Resistance. There have been countless crazy and/or impeachable things done by Donald Trump.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there because he said crazy or impeachable things, so countless crazy or impeachable things. He doesn't really go into the specifics, so this is just a ploy to make you think like all these 50 things are bad. So just starting off right off the bat, he's just going to tell you all these things are bad, impeachable, and I guarantee you that none of them are impeachable because for something to be impeachable, it has to go against the Constitution of the United States, and none of them have. I can guarantee you that right off the bat, so that's falsehood.
Or in his name since the inauguration. These are just the top 50. Here they are, as fast as I can blow through them.
These are just the top 50, pretending like there's more than 50. And I guarantee you they scraped the bottom of the barrel for these 50. I'm betting that they're going to be horrible.
January 20th, bounds into the White House, leaving the First Lady standing alone by the car.
All right, goes into the White House, leaving the First Lady alone by the car. And I've seen this video before. We all did. It was live on national television. It's when they went to the White House before the inauguration and the Obamas greeted them, and Trump got out the right side of the car and Melania got out of the left side of the car, and he came out first and she was just on the other side of the car. Like, that's a big deal. I mean, she walked around and met up with them about 1 second later, so I don't really get the point, and I'm going to try and put that little clip in there if I can, but that's just ridiculous. And how is that in any case crazy or impeachable? Yeah, he left his wife outside on the other side of the car. Here, coming from the people who want men and women to be equal. This is just ridiculous.
Insists at an inaugural ball that it stopped raining as he started to give his inaugural address, when in fact it started raining as he started to speak.
All right, so he wanted it to stop raining when he gave his inaugural address. I think that's just human. Who would want it to be raining when they're giving a speech? I don't really see how that's a bad thing whatsoever. I think everybody on the planet Earth would want it to not be raining when they're giving a speech.
January 21st, goes to speak at the CIA Memorial Wall, reportedly bringing his own staff with him to applaud him.
Oh, what a crime. He brought his own staff. I mean, that seems pretty reasonable to me. If you're going to speak at the CIA, wouldn't you want your staff to come with you? That's pretty ridiculous.
Claims he holds the record for the most Time magazine covers. He actually has 11, Richard Nixon, 55.
Well, we know that he has a very big personality and a very big ego, and if he's claiming that, then, you know, that's him. You can call him out on it, but how is that in any way whatsoever impeachable or relevant to how he's doing as a president? Who cares if the guy claims that he's been on the most Time magazine covers? Let him be cocky. We know it's wrong, but that has nothing to do with how well he is doing at the presidency.
Claims that the crowd at his inauguration extended to the Washington Monument. Has his press secretary, who is a Melissa McCarthy character, shout a lie to the reporters, quote, "This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period."
All right, so I think that was 2. And we all know this was fake. It was all over the news. It was all over the news. And we saw the press secretary go out in front of the press and say that the crowd was the biggest we ever saw, and Trump was backing that up. And I'm pretty sure Sean Spicer said that because Trump told him to. But, you know, it just comes back to the narcissism thing, and he just wants it to make it. He just wants to make it look like he's the best president ever and had the biggest crowd ever. And still, this is irrelevant to how well he's doing as a president. If GQ came out and talked about his terrible policies, then we could actually have a conversation. But all they're really doing here is talking about how much of an ego and how cocky Donald Trump is. That really has nothing to do with how well he is as a president. So this is just ridiculous.
January 22nd implies none of the Women's March participants had voted. After repeatedly stating he would release his tax returns after an audit was complete, Kellyanne Conway says, quote, he's not going to release his tax return. All
right, so he's going through these kind of quick here. I think they didn't really want anyone to pay attention to that 7th one there. Stated that none of the Women's March protesters actually voted, and I'm not really too educated on that. I had no clue that he actually said that. And to be honest, I kind of somewhat agree with that. I wouldn't say that any of them didn't vote, but I'd say only 50% of the country voted. So if all these people are out protesting, it's reasonable to believe that half of them didn't vote. So, I mean, there's your counterpoint to that argument. And I'm not sure what he just said there. Oh, he said something about Kellyanne Conway. I'm going to have to go back to it.
Conway says, quote, he's not going to release his tax returns.
I think he should release his tax returns. I mean, he did for a certain set of time. He released it for the late 90s, and it shows that he lost a lot of money for his business dealings. And second of all, it doesn't really say in the Constitution that we need to be releasing our tax returns to be running for president. So he's not forced to do it, but morally he should feel obligated to. But at the same time, if the guy feels embarrassed about his tax returns, maybe he lost money, then he doesn't have to release them. It's not public knowledge. You don't need to see somebody's tax returns if they're running for president. It has nothing to do with the presidency whatsoever.
January 23rd tells congressional leaders he would have won popular vote if it had not been for 3 to 5 million illegal votes.
I mean, you can't say this is ridiculous yet. It is a very controversial claim. It's kind of a conspiracy theory. But at the same time, there's a lot of reason to believe that there are that many illegal voters here in the United States. I mean, we've seen people voting in 2 states, being registered in 2 states. We've seen dead people voting. Somebody a couple years ago went into a primary and voted for Eminem. They voted for Eminem. And it just you don't have to have ID laws. This is what the Democrats want, because they want more illegals to vote. So they oppose ID laws, and they claim that it's against African Americans when actually all black African Americans have IDs. And they just try and make it out to look like it's against black people when actually they just want illegals to be voting. And second of all, there are like 11 million illegals here in the United States, so if 50% of the verified electorate is voting, I think there's reason to believe that maybe 3 million, 5 million illegals voted, and you can't really claim it wrong because there's no proof that it's right and there's no proof that it's wrong. I'm just saying that there's logical reason to believe that it's true and there's logical reason to believe that it's wrong. So until this investigation's over, until we have actual substantial evidence to prove a point, we can't say that this is wrong. And then lastly, how is that impeachable? Like, this is just ridiculous. The craziest things. Oh, he made a claim. He made a conspiracy theory claim.
A panoramic photo of the inauguration as evidence of his crowd size claims. Doesn't notice photo is mistakenly dated January 21st, the day after his inauguration. Claims.
Damn. Ooh, impeach that guy.
Carnage in Chicago, threatens to send in, quote, the feds, without ever saying if he means the military or Elliot Ness and his untouchables.
Okay, I don't know if that was a joke or not. Well, he obviously meant the military, and you're trying to play it and dumb it down because your audience is probably a bunch of retards. But obviously, we need to send the feds into Chicago if their own police force there that's run by the Democrats and the Democratic government in Chicago can't control the crime situation that's been happening for the past 6 years. The crime rate goes up every year, every month, and more people die in Chicago every year than almost everywhere else in the country, and it's mostly black-on-black murder. And if the police force can't handle it there, then I think the government should feel obligated to step in and fix the problem. I'm not saying that it's the best answer, but it's kind of like a fallback if we can't fix the government there. We need to elect new officials and put new police programs in to lower the crime rates.
January 25th makes up story about 2 people being murdered during Obama's Chicago farewell speech.
Okay, I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of that before, and if it's a claim, if it's true, I don't know. But I still don't see how that has anything to do with his presidency, GQ.
Threatens to cut off federal funds to sanctuary cities. Demands.
I think that we should cut off funds to sanctuary cities. These cities are holding illegal immigrants without any reason to, and the government should be funding this. We should be funding the breaking of the law here in the United States. Why do we even have sanctuary cities? What's the purpose of having a border if you can come here and go to LA and just be there safely without ever having to be kicked out of the country just because you crossed illegally? Imagine someone coming into your house and You have two old men in your living room saying, no, if they come into the living room, they're fine. You can't kick them out of the house. It's ridiculous. Sanctuary cities are a joke, and we shouldn't have them anymore.
Investigation into non-existent voter fraud, specifically voters registered in more than one state.
Yeah, we should have an investigation into voter fraud. This is a national security issue, you dumbass. Why wouldn't you want to look into voter fraud? I think everybody here should be looking into voter fraud. Why would you ever want illegals voting in an election? It doesn't matter if it's one. It doesn't matter if it's two. You should have an investigation into illegal voting. This doesn't make any sense. How is that? That's just hypocrisy. And how is that bad about his presidency whatsoever?
Doesn't seem to notice that among voters registered in more than one state are Steve Bannon, Sean Spicer, Steve Mnuchin's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and his own daughter Tiffany.
Yeah, but they're registered in two states. They didn't vote in two states. So there's the counter argument to that. You can be registered in two states to vote here in the United States, but you can't vote in two states if you're registered. Sorry, buddy, you're wrong.
Cites Pew Research data to support his voter fraud claims. The author of the report refutes the voter fraud claims, then claims Pew researcher is groveling and suppressing the truth.
This is what the left does whenever one of their own starts to lead on to the truth a little bit. We start to see them get pushed off. They said, no, this guy has no clue what he's talking about. There's no voter fraud. When Donald Trump quoted him, oh no, that guy's a deplorable. He has no clue what he's talking about, even though he's worked here for tons of years. We just don't like him now because now all of a sudden he just agrees with the truth. We hate the truth.
Tells interviewer about imaginary 3 to 5 million fraudulent votes. Quote, if you look at it, they all voted for Hillary. They all voted for Hillary. They didn't vote for me. I don't believe I got one. Okay, these are people that voted for Hillary Clinton.
All right, so this was already another one of the points. So, I mean, we're already down to 49. It's not 50 craziest things anymore. These are the same thing as one of the earlier numbers. But first of all, I don't think all of the illegal immigrants voted for Hillary. And he goes, I don't think I got one. That's just his narcissism coming up again. But there should be an investigation into illegal voting. It doesn't matter how many there are. You can make a claim for 1 million, 1 billion. It doesn't matter how many you say have voted. If there's any reason to believe that there is illegal voting and voter fraud here in the United States, we should have an investigation into it and should double down on our voter ID laws, because if illegals are tipping the election in any way whatsoever, then that's detrimental to the national security of the United States. And I don't see how that's negatively reflecting on his presidency whatsoever. So there you go.
Ignores logic that his conspiracy theory thus requires that Democrats planted 5 million illegal voters around the country, but forgot to put any of them in the states where just 77,000 votes cost Clinton the election.
I mean, that's only if you assume that the Democrats own these people and just tell them all what to do. No, these are illegal immigrants coming across the border, working in sanctuary cities, working on farms, doing all this cheap labor, and then going to voting booths and voting for the Democrats because that's what illegal immigrants want to do, because the Democrats want to create sanctuary cities. The Democrats want to allow more illegal immigrants into the country. You know why? It's because then they get their votes. If the illegal immigrants look at two candidates and they see one wants them here and one doesn't want them here, they're going to vote for the one that wants them here. And they shouldn't be here in the first place because they're illegal immigrants. We should be allowing these people to come here legally. If you look at polls of legal immigrants, most of them actually did vote for Trump. It was a huge percentage of Cuban immigrants are Republicans, and they voted for Trump because what happens is they come across legally, then they turn around and they see, and it takes forever, and then they turn around and they see these people that just walked across the border and then are just coddled in sanctuary cities and just being encouraged to break the law, and then they go and vote illegally. So to assume that the Democrats are controlling all these people is ridiculous, and obviously they're not going to be in the Republican states because the Republican states are more towards the middle of the country and not close to the borders whatsoever. There's a lot in California because most illegal immigrants go there because LA is a sanctuary city. There's as many as 5 million illegal immigrants in California. That's a fact, and it's reasonable to believe that probably under half of them voted because their voter ID laws are so just ridiculous. You don't even have to have an ID to vote in California.
January 26th, reported to have personally pressured United States Park Service to support his inauguration crowd exaggeration after campaigning against...
I don't see why pressuring the Park Service is bad. If they deny it, then they deny it. If they don't, then they don't. I mean, it doesn't have any reflection on his presidency whatsoever. And here you go again, back to the crowds. The media is the ones making this such a big deal about the crowds. Just let him say, we had the biggest crowd ever, and then just say, no, you didn't. Here's the pictures. Don't keep going on about how he lied, because you're just feeding him, and you're just feeding him here. You just keep feeding him over and over again, and you need to stop it because it's not working. It's that you're actually making the problem worse.
Against Clinton for slovenly handling of classified data and private email is reported to have tied the POTUS Twitter account to private email and to be using only one-step security and to be...
I mean, it's his Twitter account. It's a president. It's not to private email. This is the relation you're trying to make. His public Twitter account being tied to his personal email is bad, and it is worse than Hillary Clinton's private email server that she was using to handle government documents, that she was using for all of the State Department documents. She was using her private email server for that. You're saying that Donald Trump's presidential Twitter account being linked to a private email is as bad as that? What is he going to be putting just government documents on his Twitter account, and we shouldn't be allowing them through his email? Like, that's ridiculous. There's no relation there whatsoever. You're trying to relate two things that have nothing to do with each other. And you're just trying to make it look like Hillary doing something that was illegal is relatable to Donald Trump using a private email for his presidential Twitter account. And I guarantee Obama used a private email for his presidential Twitter account. It's on his phone. And it's not like we're using government documents on our Twitter accounts. Ridiculous.
Tweeting from what appears to be a 5-year-old non-secure phone. January 27th, cites voting fraud expert who claims 3 million illegal votes, but who has never produced any of the evidence he has repeatedly promised.
Yeah, I mean, we keep going back to this evidence thing, and there's no evidence of it not happening, and there's no evidence of it happening. We have logical reasoning to believe, based on the amount of illegal immigrants here in the country, that there is illegal voting happening. And honestly, it's bad for Donald Trump to be citing evidence that it doesn't exist, but it's also bad for you to be contradicting evidence that doesn't exist based on evidence that doesn't exist. So you could just shut your mouth about that and wait till this investigation is over until we have a proven point here.
Issues statement commemorating International Holocaust Remembrance Day that does not include the words Jew, Judaism, or Jewish.
Oh, shame on you, Donald Trump. Oh my God, such a bad thing. We should impeach you because you didn't just acknowledge the Jews during the Holocaust. I mean, you have to also acknowledge the millions of German people that were killed during the Holocaust, the millions of Polish people, the millions of Russian people that were killed during the Holocaust. The Nazis were killing anyone that didn't agree with their own opinion. And they painted the Jews as the enemy, and then they killed anybody else that helped or assisted the Jews. So, honestly, you're the ones who always fight for the minorities here, and if this was Obama stating it, you'd be all over his back. You'd be all over this man's back, covering his back. But just because Trump wants to address the minority group in the entire situation, you just get entirely livid and just go crazy with yourselves. You're a bunch of children, honestly, and you have no reasoning or logic whatsoever.
Institutes a refugee ban on Muslim nations on a day that recalls how America turned its back on refugees from Nazi Germany.
I don't really understand this. We institute a refugee ban on primarily Muslim countries. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I explained that in my other video. And then on a day... Okay, so that's not bad. And then on a day where we didn't... What did he say?
Jewish institutes a refugee
Let me see what he says here.
Muslim nations on a day that recalls how America turned its back on refugees from Nazi Germany.
I mean, we turned our back on a day where we... Okay, on a day where we turned our back on refugee Jewish people coming from Germany, I don't see how it's bad because it's on the same day. I mean, FDR, a Democrat, was the one who turned down Jewish refugees from Germany, and just because it's on that day doesn't mean that these have no correlation with each other whatsoever. We're trying to keep out immigrants or refugees from civil war countries. It's not the same as Germany, where they were just slaughtering Jews. And honestly, we should have been letting the Jews in back then. So that was FDR's fault. and it's not the same now. Now we shouldn't be letting these people in. I've already explained this multiple times, and they're just going to keep running with this narrative to try and fool Americans into believing what they say.
January 28th, Muslim ban is so hastily introduced, no one knows how it applies to those with green cards, and border and customs agents are left guessing what to do next.
Yeah, see, this is one of the criticisms I have with the immigration ban, because it's a very good policy. It was just rolled out the wrong way. Like he said, it was rolled out too fast, and nobody knew what people with green cards were going to be able to do. Nobody knew what people who are already in this country were going to do. Nobody really had a clue how this was going to affect travel between the countries and the people that were already here and the people that were over there that needed to come back. So that's one of the problems I have, and I agree with that, but at the same time, how is that crazy or how is that impeachable? Honestly, it just seems a little bit hasteful to me and a little bit sloppy. It doesn't go against the Constitution whatsoever.
In phone call with Prime Minister of Australia, becomes angered about agreed upon refugee resettlement deal, reportedly hangs up on Prime Minister.
I mean, he got angry and hung up. That just seems like a personality problem, and it just seems like you don't agree with his personality. I don't see how that's impeachable whatsoever if we're having a bad relationship with another country based on policy. That seems completely rational. If you don't agree with the policy of another country and they don't agree with your policy and you have a disagreement there and you hang up on them, that seems completely rational to me, and you just sound like a crybaby. Alright, so that's number 25. This video is already over 20 minutes long, so I'm going to have to stretch it into number 2. Thank you, GQ, for making this so easy. Check the link below for part 2 to this video or on my channel.